A divided people are like threads pulled apart, each one weak and easily snapped. But when woven together, they become a fabric that cannot be torn. So also, a lone sheep is an easy target for predators, but a united flock protects its members. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, peace-loving people of Plateau State. Glad to be welcoming you to yet another fascinating episode of your number one dynamic socio-political breakfast tonic and conscience-speaking program on radio. It is Political Update coming to you live on Silverbird, Rhythm 93.7 FM here in the city of Jos. Today is the 24th day of February, the year 2026. My name is Pam Dunquist, and of course, the People's Prof, Comrade Luka Pampe Yakubu, who is sitting in for Bello Lukman, is already seated. And by coincidence, today is also the People's Prof's Day. He's already seated to take us down our destination of 12 known with political analysis. People's Prof, good morning, even though issues that are cropping in, or rather stories that are cropping in are not really good for us to say good morning, but we have no option than to still say good morning.
When a man rises in the morning, just like the sun, one of the critical questions he asks is about whether God is not also benevolent to him in terms of the sacrifice that God has also made for man to exist in the true sense of the word. Every creation created by God is also at the disposal and mercy of God in the true sense of the word. In fact, it was Mutabaruka who said that when the monkey spoke its mind, in fact, the monkey itself cannot carry a clock against another. Because again, he asked the question, are we really humans in the true sense of the word? When, for example, we try to distort the life of another person, we try to destroy the life of another person, we try to bring down people in the true sense of the word, simply because of certain matters that ordinarily would have also been able to resolve them on the table, as it were. Good morning to our listeners. Indeed, just like Pam Dunquist has said, can we also start with saying good morning, or we should say bad morning? But indeed, the fact that God has given us the opportunity to also resolve our differences, we should also be able to appreciate the fact that He has given us life to also call it a good one, as it were. And good morning to our listener. Good morning to Ugo, who is also behind the camera, to Pam Dunquist, and to Bello Lukman, whom as of this morning, reports I have also gotten is the fact that he's doing fine in Abuja, and by the grace of God, any moment from now, they should also be able to be at the police headquarters alongside other people who have also said they are rightly going to be behind him. The former Minister of Sports, Youth and Sports Development, Honorable Solomon Dalung, is also there with him. Then Barrister Gangzi SAN, who has also said that, look, this is not even an issue for anybody to worry about, given the fact that the matters that are also on the table are issues that we believe can also be resolved at the end of the day.
All right, let's go straight into the conversation, but then have it in mind that we'll still monitor the situation around town to know how we go about this procession, just from the front of Silverbird down to State Secretariat flyover. But then we'll continue to keep you updated of happenings and development as well. People's Prof, we'll be taking the stories and merging them and also relating them to what is happening at the local level. Now, oil revenue roar, presidency defense Tinubu as legal titans split over executive order. Of course, we know that the Constitution is very clear and explicit. There are things that the president can actually decide by virtue of executive orders. There are other issues that have to pass through the National Assembly. Then there are other issues that has to do with the Federal Executive Council. And there are other issues that have to do with former governors, former presidents, as the case may be. But on this one now, we have a split over whether the president have the right to declare an executive order to say that, no, all monies are generated from NNPC, midstream and downstream sector, and the rest of them need to go into a single treasury account so that Nigerians can also know where their monies are going into and how they are being used. But a lot of people will be quick to ask the question, number one, who is the Minister of Petroleum in Nigeria? Is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And Nigerians will be quick to also ask, what was the process that led to the President actually waiving over 5 trillion naira that was owed to the Federation by the NNPC and other bodies that are under it. And a lot of Nigerians will be curious because the law, the constitution is very clear. One man, the president or any other person, cannot just sit down single-handedly to waive away debts that are owed to the country, except they sit with the local government, with the state government, and other people that are actually involved, because this money does not belong to the elected officials alone. It belongs to 230 million Nigerians.
Quist, the essence of government is the protection of lives and property of the people, and it's also about the provision of welfare of the citizens, as it were. And government cannot do this without revenue. Resources are equally required to be able to ensure that the security agencies are able to carry out their responsibilities within the confine of the budgetary provisions in the true sense of the word. Now, the idea about revenue is the fact that government need to run, in the true sense of it, in order to meet both its recurrent and capital expenditure, as it were. Between 1956 and 1957, when oil was actually discovered in commercial quantity in Oluebiri, in the present day Bayelsa State, one of the things that occupied the minds of a lot of Nigerians was whether government was also going to come straight up in terms of utilizing the revenue derivable from oil to be able to improve on the security of the people, on the welfare of the people in the true sense of the word. Now, fast forward what has happened from 1956 to where we are today. The issue of the oil sector has become an issue of discussion in this country in the true sense of the word. In fact, when the NNPC itself came on board many years back, the idea was whether the monies that were also being plucked from that oil sector was also meeting up with the needs of the people in the true sense of the word, in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of security, in terms of transportation, in terms of job creation, in terms of even funding the educational sector in the true sense of the word. But again, Quiz, you know that the oil sector in Nigeria has been one that has become very controversial over the period of time. There were questions as to whether the monies that were being raised from that sector were also going into our common coffers for our common development or not, as it were. You will recall again that prior to the signing of the PIA, bill into law as it is on August 2021 by the then Buhari administration, there were a lot of controversies in that particular sector. There were questions as to whether the NNPC was supposed to generate certain amount of money and pay part of the money in profit into the account of the government, or that the entire monies that were raised by the NNPC should also go into the account of the government at the national level, distributable to the 3 tiers of government in the true sense of the word. And so all the gerrymantrics that were played out came into the PIA in 2021. And what were some of the provisions there? Some of the provisions still maintain that indeed all monies generated from that sector are expected to go into the Federation account as contained in Section 162 of 1999 Constitution as amended, and that part of the monies generated in revenue should also go into the consolidated fund as spelled out in Section 80 subsection 1 of 1999 Constitution as amended. But the PIA now said no, we are actually going to convert this into a business-like enterprise, and that was why the NNPCL also came on board. But part of the provisions of that NNPCL retainment of funds, as it were, was that some monies, like 30% of investment, will also be retained by the NNPC, okay? Then profits will also be retained, and in short, for the running and investment will be reinvested for the sake of Nigeria in the true sense of the word. But again, a lot of people have also questioned this, and that is why the Tinubu administration, when it came on board, it now looked at the constitution and said, no, why should we allow the NNPCL to also retain certain amount of money at its own disposal for reinvestment in Nigeria? And the Tinubu administration now said, look, why can't we use executive order to be able to ensure that all monies, mark my word, all monies raised by the NNPCL also go into the Federation account first, before those deductions can also be made and remittances paid to NNPC and its subsidiaries in the true sense of the word. And so then the president decided to come up with executive order order 909, as it were. And some of the things that are contained in that order is a 30% frontier revenues that are also generated from investment outside the Niger Delta, as it were. And that there are other remittances that should all go into the Federation account first, before we can talk about those issues, including the ones that are paid to communities, the oil revenue, the oil communities in the true sense of the word. So the conversation over the week has been the fact that lawyers have come out to say no, that what President Tinubu has done is illegal, is illegitimate, and unconstitutional in the true sense of the word. Some of them argue that, look, that if you want to address this lacuna that you say you have discovered in the PIA, why can't you go back with a bill to the National Assembly which has made it a law for you to be able to amend those provisions? For example, there are arguments about section 54 sub 1 of that PIA, okay, in the true sense of the word, where, for example, people have also said that yes, there should be some retainments according to the provisions of the law by this agency. But Onanuga has also come out to lash at people, saying that, look, what you are saying, according to Bayo Onanuga, the spokesperson to the presidency, the president as it were, is the fact that the president did not hear in law that in fact the executive order 09 is to be able to correct the lacuna that they have also discovered with the PIA, as it were. And according to Bayo Onanuga, he cited some provisions of the law. One of the aspects he cited is section 44 subsection 3, where he was quoted as saying that all mining revenues, all activities relating to that particular sector are expected to go into the federation, or the monies belonging to the federation in the true sense of the word. So why should an NNPCL, as envisaged in the PIA, be the one that will take those part of the money and retain it for their own reinvestment for the purpose of Nigeria in the true sense of the word? He also cited section 5. He said that based on the principles of executive order and powers, that the president have the executive power to be able to make corrections, as it were, to be able to ginger administrative structures to function effectively within the confine of the law. And in fact, if you look at the principles of separation of powers as contained in section 4, section 5, and section 6, Bayo Onanuga argued that section 5 is about the executive power that are donated to Mr. President, and that he has exercised it, okay, in the true sense of it with regards to executive or EO 09, as it were. The third point raised by Bayo Onanuga is the fact that section 80 sub 1 also talks about the fact that all revenues, okay, generated in that capacity must also go into the consolidated fund of the federation, as it were, before we can also talk about section 162, where all monies paid into the federation account is also called distributable pool, and that monies at that level will be distributed to the state, the local governments, as well as the federal government, as it were. So those are the arguments by the federal government. But lawyers have also come out, like Shitu, SAN, okay, has also come out to write a long essay and say that there are limits to executive order. One of the limits is the fact that even where the executive discover that the legislature has erred, quote and unquote, about certain provisions which are contrary to the provisions of section 1 sub 1 and section 1 sub 3, that talks about the supremacy of the constitution, that also talk about where there is inconsistency, the constitution override. According to Shitu SAN, he said that no, the president cannot also exercise that power alone in that capacity as an executive. That where that power of inconsistency comes into display, it is the same court that is expected to interpret it, not the presidency at the end of the day. So again, a lot of people are asking questions. When the likes of the former CBN governor, and that is the emir of Kano now, Sanusi Lamido, raised issues about almost 19 to 21 billion dollars that were also being lost in terms of expenditures from the NNPC or the oil sector, as it were. What were the results of the findings of government with regards to those issues in the true sense of the word? When billions of dollars are spent for turnaround maintenance of our refineries, as it were, what were the benefits to a lot of people? Because Pengassin has come out to say that, look, we will oppose the president. If you want to do this, go and amend the PIA, as it were, because you are going to stifle the investment capacity of NNPCL and also its subsidiary. But a lot of people are asking, what about the people who are working in the NNPC, in the refineries that are not working, and are collecting millions of naira in salary without providing any significant contribution to the economy. What about those people, for example, where government has spent billions of naira in contract for turnaround maintenance and the system is not working? What do we do with that? So I think concern this morning for us, Pamdon Quiz, is the fact that when monies are raised by government, people are asking questions. It's not just about revenue, but what do we do with the revenue?
In fact, people's prof, you just took it to where exactly I wanted you to take it to. Because a House of Representative ad hoc committee reported that Nigeria, through NMPCL and government, spent about 11.35 trillion on rehabilitation of the three major state-owned refineries, Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna, from 2010 to 2023. But the question is, what is the propriety of these refineries as we speak this morning? And also, Nigeria is not the only country that has oil. Yet, you raised a very, very vital point where you said most Nigerians are not concerned about this long English, but what is the money being used for?
That's right.
Because that will be the major concern and the questions that many Nigerians will be asked. We have a country like Brunei. They have oil just like Nigeria has. And they also give free healthcare and education to their people. No personal income tax. Oil revenues fund social welfare and public services. These are some of the things they provide for their people. Malaysia, they also invest in education, manufacturing, and infrastructure. We also have Oman, who use oil well to modernize infrastructure and education, expanding diversification efforts in terms of tourism, logistics, and the rest of them. We have United States of America. We don't even need to talk about that, because when you move from one state to another, you think that you have seen the beauty of United States until you get to another state. Then you think that maybe this one is more beautiful than one you have seen. We also have Canada. We know how many Africans are running to Canada because they feel that government is working there and the system is okay. We also have Kuwait. You know that the strongest currency in the world today, as we speak, is the Kuwait dinar. Even though the one that controls the economy or the international market is the dollar, though it's not as strong as the Kuwaiti dinar. But go and check the beauty of Kuwait. Then compare it to Nigeria, where we also have, at least Nigeria is one of the top 20 oil producing countries in the entire world. Yet, we cannot really give an account to say indeed, right from when oil was discovered in the 50s and to date, what have we been able to generate, and how have we been able to use it to turn around the fortunes of the entire Nigerians? Can we link that to the insecurity we are facing?
Let me give you another perspective. Yesterday, the president held an iftar, that is fasting, breaking of fast, with governors of the federation. There were 20 governors, about 22 governors, 20 governors that were also present at that particular iftar at the presidential villa, and 2 deputy governors and top government functionaries who represented their own states at that particular iftar, as it were. And one of the things that Mr. President said is that I have given you enough resources from the removal of subsidy. And one of the things that Mr. President has said that is also generating a lot of controversy today is that Nigeria is out of the woods, that the darkest days of Nigeria are over. That was what Mr. President also said. And a lot of people have also asked the question, when you give these resources as a result of removal of subsidy, governors have received billions of naira from the federation account. Local government chairmen have also received millions of naira in the true sense of the word. But again, a lot of people are asking the question, with all these monies that you are also talking about, is Nigeria truly out of the woods, as it were? He said that the darkest part of the tunnel has already been defeated, if I paraphrase what Mr. President said. But just like you have said, Pam Dunkwish, he asked the question. This morning, we saw on the papers that about 400.008 trillion is the total amount of debts that states or subnationals are also owing, according to the DMO office, as it were. That is the debt management office in the true sense of the word. Then I asked the question, with all the resources that they are collecting, and people are complaining about bad roads, people are complaining about water shortages in Mado, people are complaining about issues associated to welfare of the citizens. Senior citizens are also complaining about issues of pension in some states and even gratuities. Non-implementation of the new salary scale in some states, as it were. The bigger questions a lot of people are asking is that if there are enough resources that are also being circulated for the development of our communities, why do we also talk about local and international debts in the true sense of the word? Pamdunquist, do you know that Lagos alone takes about 40% of that total debt of about 400.008 trillion that is also reported this morning? Do you also know that there are states, kudos to states like Plateau State, when the government of Plateau State under this administration came on board, if my memory is correct, there was about almost 153 billion domestic debts that was also on ground, including pension, including gratuity, including probably salaries that were also not paid, and so on and so forth. But do you know that by May of 2025 last year, 31st of May, from the reports we got from budget and DMO as it were, the debt is also standing at about 83.3 billion as it were, about 3.3 billion if my records are also correct. Not to talk about almost 35 point something million dollars in foreign debts that is also owned at the level of the state. When you put all this together, you ask the question, are we collecting more revenues from the Federation account as provided in section 162 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and still collecting debt, foreign debts and domestic debt, to finance what that the people are not seeing at the end of the day? So we must ask ourselves a fundamental question. What is the value of all these monies? Dr. Jim Pam Wires, a very creditable chairman of the Plateau State Internal Revenue Service, read out an improvement in terms of revenue generation of Plateau State just about 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. And according to him, he said that the state has also moved to about 12 billion to more than 53 billion or thereabout. I cannot get the correct figure now. But the point to be made is that yes, there's an improvement in revenue generation. According to him, that may not also, though they have surpassed the target, but that may not also be what they are aiming at. But the question a lot of people are asking is that, how do you finance the road projects? How do you finance the water projects? How do you also finance the aspects of development in our education sector that are requiring a lot of huge expenditure in the true sense of the word? You have given a contract of about 39 point something kilometers, covering an area where you and I visited. We were there at the Flag Off on Tuesday last week. The Jebubasa Binchin Buyo with a sport to Zagun as it were. Then the one at Sabon Lai, okay, about 2 point something kilometers. How do you fund those projects? It's from these revenues. But the truth be told, Pamdunquist, when monies are increased, people should be able to see the value. And what is the value? The value should be in the reduction of cost of school fees for our parents. Okay? The value should be in the reduction of cost of health services, that our senior citizens, like the likes of our mother, Madam Sarah Ramadan, should be able to have access to health care services in the true sense of the word, without also spoiling their pockets at the post at the end of the day. We should be able to see that we take care of people who cannot take care of themselves, particularly the aged, what I call the senior citizen. The youth should also have employment at the end of the day. Jobs should be created. If jobs were created and people are doing legitimate businesses and getting money, do you think that the 4 persons who fell into the unfortunate hand of people who took their lives on their way to a market, okay, just yesterday or thereabout, along the Barking Ladi Road, would have also happened? No, these are gentlemen who went out to make a living for themselves. These are gentlemen who said, we cannot sit down and fold our hands and look at ourselves going into crime or drugs like other people. Let us do legitimate business. And so they went into business. They were on their way to go and look for their daily 2K, as we say in this part of the world. But unfortunately, the unfortunate thing happened on the way. So the point I'm trying to make is that government can find a way around some of these issues we're talking about. If you don't provide this welfare for the people, then you will have to grapple with other aspects of insecurity, because you drive a lot of factors that go into unemployment, into insecurity at the end of the day. So for me, clearly speaking, Pamdunquist, I think that yesterday should be a moment of sober reflection. Sober reflection to who? To the governors at the subnational, to the local government chairman, to come back and tell us that, look, the little that we are getting It's also meeting up with the needs of the communities in the true sense of the word.
People's Prof, let me just buttress your point because you mentioned the home front.
Yes.
And I think we need to also make it clear
Yes.
to the listener out
Yes.
there and even the viewer. Of course, it is no more news that 2024 performance of the Plateau State Internal Revenue Service achieved 31.14 billion in IGR, marking the first time the state crossed the 30 billion
That's
mark.
right.
Okay, now the growth trend, revenue increased from 5.9 billion in 2022 to 25.8 billion. If you ask me, that is something that needs to be applauded. But as you rightly said, can we also see it reflecting in our schools? Can we see it reflecting in our hospitals? Can we see it reflecting on the road infrastructure? Just like you rightly said, the flag of the road in Basa is something that needs to be applauded, but then we wait to see when it's going to commence. And also, if you talk about the health sector, indeed, to some extent, we have seen some improvement. That's to say that to some level, this money generated is actually used for the purpose that it's meant for, because we've seen where the state government have actually ordered that any anti-snake venom vaccine should be given free of charge. We also see what Kimbo Jerry is doing in that facility where kits are given to expectant mothers. So to some extent, we will say yes, something is being done. But like our friend Opitex from Agonjarawa, he will ask the question, we in the other side, we are not feeling the impact of government. Why? Because the road we have been singing and crying and yelling that this road have been isolated, has been rejected. So far, so close. Because if you go to the tomato market, you will see another set of people telling you that as far as we are concerned, the government has done very well for us. Why? Because this was the picture of the road and this is the current condition of the road. So we are saying this morning, just like we are talking about the state, we also look at the local government, we also look at the federal government. It's a collective responsibility that needs to be carried out so that we can win the trust and confidence of the people. And also, that can also go a long way in reducing some of the challenges we are facing, especially in terms of insecurity. Just like you rightly said, People's Prof, those young people that actually decided not to go into crime, not to become a nuisance in the society, they decided to go and make a living. Unfortunately, they fell victims of the unfortunate incident, just like our brothers in Kanawuri, who actually left Plateau State and felt that the best place for them to go and make a living is in Kwara State, only for them to come back with a lot of dead bodies, and more than 1,000 have to relocate back home. And you know what it means for them to start all over again.
Pandum quiz, you see, the reality about it is priority. What are our priorities? If today your salary increase on account of the fact that monies are also coming from FAC, and you decided to eat the money, when I say eat in this local parlance, means you spent it lavishly, you squander the money, and instead of maintaining your health, you begin to face obesity because of too much of fat in you at the end of the day. Or that because your salary is also increased, instead of taking care of your existing family that has also suffered with you, you decide to increase 4 to 5 wives as an exhibition of the increase in that particular salary. Then I'll tell you that that is growth without development. It is just a quantitative increase without quality in your life at the end of the day. And I'm using this analogy to speak to the fact that government should also determine what it wants to spend its money on in terms of priority. What are we spending our resources on? Are we spending our resources on SUVs or tractors? And we claim we want to have food security. And I've always said, until the day that the importation of tractors will exceed the importation of SUV luxury cars, our agri sector will continue to suffer. Let that sink, as it were. Because we spend more on those luxuries than promoting the factors that will generate further benefit within the multiple chains of benefit in the true sense of the word. Now, I'll give you an example. It is good to sponsor people to go to Jerusalem, via Jordan, as part of their religious activities, as it were. But it's also good to also look at the viability of that amount and people that you are spending the money for. For example, the Plateau State government has come out to say that we are spending about 7.814 billion for 1,100 people to go to Jerusalem on pilgrimage, as it were. But again, a lot of people are saying that yes, it's good. That His Excellency also balance religion with other activities, which is fundamentally important, as it were. Don't get me wrong. But again, we must also balance it with development on the other side. The first presentation was 914 billion before the House of Assembly. But when the House of Assembly sat down and looked at, said, no, we are approving 817 billion, point something, okay, for the government to run. But where you have a government that wants to spend about over 505 billion on infrastructure, on capital expenditure, or on roads, for example, inclusive, then you must also ask the question that wisdom behoves on leadership to ensure that there is a balance between the two, in the true sense of the word. Because you are equally going to do it for the Muslim Ummah when it comes to Hajj, again, on the other side, to be able to balance that. That is very good. But the advice this morning is that, what do we use the resources for? If a local government chairman decide to use majority or the large chunk of the monies accruing to that local government for paltry issues that do not act on the multiple value chain in that particular local government, then he has already buried his ambition for this September-October election that is also coming in 2026. He may not return because the people already know that you have not used the money to develop their communities in the true sense of the word. So people know these things, and I've seen in the last few days people talking about accountability at the local government level. That there are local government chairmen that have shown dexterity in terms of the way they carry out their activities in that local government with regards to development. That there are some of them that have also shown mercy to the people. Some have said they have provided transformers to communities, and we tick the box for them, green, and say fantastic. Some of them have graded roads, we say fantastic. Some of them are up to date in terms of the conversation around primary health care, and we say fantastic. But what about the rest of them that are already sleeping, and that the monies that are going into the local government, people cannot account for them? You mentioned some agencies in the state, fantastic. You mentioned the drug commodity agency, as it were, drugs commodity agency, as it were, and I say fantastic job. People at least can see what is happening. There are many agencies that are also doing their part. Can we ask the Sustainable Development Goals Agency, the SDGs too, the same question? Can we ask the Peace Building Agency the same question, in terms of the fact that yes, they have said that they are going to establish 12 additional offices in 12 local governments out of the 17 local government, when the DG of that particular organization paid a courtesy visit on the chairman of Lantang North local government. We were told that yes, they will expand those things. But to what extent can that also stem the tides of insecurity that we're talking about? I thought that even at this morning, the early warning signs of the Peace Building Agency would have also been triggered since yesterday, to be able to call the different groups on the same table. We will may not to have experienced some of these unfortunate situations that we've seen on the highway, alone in Din community, alone the Ratatis community, alone the Rob community, alone the Jol community, alone the Dorua Babuje community, and indeed alone the Jakatai axis, for example. Maybe we would have been talking about meetings across different boards to be able to tell people that, look, the tensions that are also getting rising among people in various communities at the city center should have also been doused by some of these things in the true sense of the word.
Let me still read the headline. Alleged genocide, US Congress panel submits Nigeria report to Trump. And I said, let's bring it home and now spread it across the length and breadth of the country. People's Prof, in 2001, an unfortunate incident happened on the plateau, just not to be precise, and we had a situation where military were brought in to actually quell the situation. And I always want to relate it with the case of somebody that has a skin infection on one of his fingers, and they took him to a dermatologist who they say is an expert in that field. And from that one finger, in the process of trying to actually cure that infection, it affected the 4 fingers. Then the man said, we are still working on it. The next thing, almost every part of the body is affected. Do we call that progress? Because we remembered very well, we started the name that was given to the military presence here on the plateau, particularly in Jos North, was Special Task Force. As time goes on, we had Joint Task Force. And I think that was when other agencies were co-opted into the system. Then little by little, we now had Operation Safe Haven. And Nigerians and Platonians will be asking, how safe has the haven been all this while? Then now, we are talking about Operation Enduring Peace. Which of the peace? Do we endure the pains? Do we endure the suffering? Do we endure the hardship? Do we endure the disunity that has been created by people that probably are profiting from this issue of insecurity? Because if you ask me, if the issue or the challenge could not be quelled within Just North, today every part of Plateau State is having military presence. Go to every part of the country. When we're talking about Boko Haram, it was just majorly centered and concentrated in Borno State. Today, as we speak, you cannot even tell exactly the extent to which these people have gone in operating. And we keep asking the question, is it that these people are bigger than the authorities, or is it just because some people don't actually want this unfortunate incident to end?
Pamdunquis, I always say it, if the king's pimples mature into a boy, then the eye of the god and the palace elders should be blamed, as it were. Now let me also come this way. If today you have a problem in your family, your wife and children, and there's a constant fight and attack in that house, and your son finds comfort in reporting that incident to your neighbor, and your neighbor comes into your house to investigate, to provide solution, then you have failed in your responsibility as a responsible father, in the true sense of the word. Let that also sink. What are we talking about? We're talking about a government in the United States of America that is now submitting a report to the White House about your own country.
A sovereign nation.
A sovereign nation. What does that tell you? Riley Moore, Congressman Riley Moore, was asked to come and investigate, according to Trump. The Appropriation and the Foreign Affairs Committee of the American Congress was asked to investigate and report to the president about cases of alleged genocide in Nigeria, in your own family. The Americans are here to do a work that ordinarily would have expected that the relevant House committees in the House of Representatives should be the one placing this report yesterday on the table of Mr. President in the villa. Would have expected that the Senate Committee on Security or National Security should have been the one that is championing this issue on the table of Mr. President. And that by Tuesday, today, Mr. President should have been taking practical aspects of the recommendations contained in that particular report. But what are we talking about? We're talking about a system where the Americans are the ones who have charged themselves and said, go and do a work of the people that Nigeria, none of us elected Riley Moore to represent us.
At all.
None of us elected Trump to represent us, or any member of the Appropriation and Foreign Affairs Committee of the United States. For example, we elected our people here to do the work for us. But is it also an endorsement on failure of our system to perform that we're looking outside the family, just like the example I gave? Is it a failure of the father to resolve his issue in the house that has also resulted into a neighbor coming into your house to resolve your issues? These are fundamental questions that we should be able to ask. The congressman came to Nigeria. He was in Benue, he was in Yalwata, okay, making investigation. And part of the things contained in that recommendation that's presented to Trump, yes, it was presented to Trump yesterday, that political update got snippets of the recommendation, is the fact that, number one, that there should be a security bipartisan agreement that should be signed between the United States of America and Nigeria. Then secondly, we don't know whether that will also include training, because we have also received reports of the presence of the Americans in Nigeria for the purpose of technical support and training, as it were, in the true sense of the word. The second aspect of that recommendation is the fact that the Trump administration will trigger a process of further technical support, according to them, to be able to assist the Nigerian military and the security structure to be able to fight these nihilist extremist groups in the true sense of the word. Number three in that recommendation is the fact that the United States of America is going to slow down and step down on some of its aids to Nigeria, international aids. And you know what that will mean. in terms of our health sector, in terms of our education, funding for scholarships, and so on and so forth. This is another third thing that they have also recommended. Number 4, the committee also recommended that, look, on the issue of Nigeria, there should be an amendment to the Sharia law, according to them. And the blasphemy law on ground, according to them in that recommendation, should also be amended, so that there will be an equal level playing ground for different religions, given the fact that Nigeria is a secular state in the true sense of the word. So these are some of the recommendations that the Americans have made. Number 5, which is also very important, is that they are going to keep an eye to be able to classify certain persons, okay, and put sanctions on certain individuals who are collaborators to these extremist groups in the true sense of the word. And indeed, we already know that Trump has gone ahead to be able to talk about that recommendation even before the presentation of the report. He has said that there are certain persons of particular interest, and he mentioned McBahn as a recommendation that is also coming from that group. And McBahn, by the way, is Miete Allah Cattle Breeders Association. They have also come out to say, no, you cannot use one brush to paint all of us. That there are some of us that are clean. We don't have issues, and we don't support crime in our communities. They have issued a press statement. But fundamentally, people are asking questions. They mention collaborators. If you are collaborating and you are sympathetic to those groups, then you are also classified under this recommendation, as it were. So the point to be made is that, and you have made the point, for Plateau State, we've seen this crisis in the past. From 1994 right up to 2001, September 7, then to 2008, okay, the local government election crisis and all that, and the unfortunate alleged attacks of travelers along the Hawan-Kibo-Riom axis. We don't want to go back to that. I was fortunate to work with the likes of Right Honorable Yusuf Adamu Gabdi, also known as Babaye, when he was the Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly. And there was a committee that was set by the Right Honorable Peter Azi, led House of Assembly, as a speaker, to be able to look at the cases of attacks on the roads, and particularly along that axis. You remember at that time, people who were going to the northeast, in fact, somebody who was traveling to Bauchi told me at the time in 2016 that he had to travel from Abuja through Kaduna, from Kaduna to Zaria, okay, to go round for him to be able to come back to Bauchi because of the fear of the unknown on this particular road, as it were. Drivers, as of that time, the National Union of Road Transport Workers will attest to this, will have to call their members to give them security tips on whether they should be able to move along that road or not, in the true sense of the word. That also came in 2016, part of the recommendation in that particular report. It started with 12 local governments. It was later expanded. There were communities that were attacked in Furusum in Jos East. It expanded to Jos East. There were places that were attacked in Lantang South. It expanded to Lantang. I remember we traveled all around this local government. In places like Chanso, in Mangu local government, we held meetings with youths at the Mangu local government secretariat at that time. I was with the committee as of then. And the committee did a very fantastic work. Part of the recommendation was to the effect of the establishment of the Peace Building Agency today that we're also talking about. And a lot of people are asking questions, are we going back to that dark days, to those dark days? Have we not also moved on and learned lessons, just like Pamdun Quiz has said? Can we also continue to make the terminus or the main market area a war zone among brothers and sisters in Plateau State? Come on, gentlemen. We must ask ourselves this question. Why are we also going into those dark days? The dark days where, for example, you cannot go to other communities, as it were? This is a question we should be able to ask ourselves. So I think, clearly speaking, we should be able to stem this tide before it gets out of hand. People should just hold on, okay? People should be patient with one another. People should work with the security agencies. But the security agencies must also show good faith, so that at the end of the day, the justice system must provide justice for all of us. And once there is no justice, like I keep saying it, that is when people begin to raise their 10 fingers against one another, okay, at the end of the day.
I want you to relate this as an educator, because that is who you are. FCT polls, ADC candidates, obedience rejects result. Now, People's Prof, there is one result that has been trending online, and let me just read it out. it shows Independent National Electoral Commission Statement of Result 2026 Area Council Election Quali Chairmanship. Okay, the state is FCT, code number 37. Then the area council is Quali, code number is 05. Then registration area ward is Yangoji. I think that's the pronunciation, and the code number is 02. And also the polling unit is Koroko Primary Health Center, and the code is 017. People's Prof. Here we have down total valid votes is 211. Written in words 211. But here we have the results. Some people got, some party got 2 votes, some got 17. Then out of that 211 votes, a party got 1,212 votes. And you ask yourself the question, if you were to be a father and your son came home with a result like this, would you actually tell your son that congratulations, or you tell the school that they did well, or you blame both your son and the school?
I think that there are a lot of issues. We can narrow them when it comes to politics. Sometimes not as easy as one would want to narrow it, as it were. In 1989, Lucky Dube released a song, an album titled Prisoner. And then there was a song that we know which is called War, and he asked, this one blamed the other one. What is wrong? No one knows who is right and who is wrong, as it were. No one knows who is right and who is wrong. The black man said this is the white man. The white man said this is the black man. The Indian say is this. Okay, and so on and so forth. Now the question a lot of people are asking is, what is going on, or what went wrong as far as those issues are concerned? And indeed, if a person comes with that kind of result, definitely you are going to raise an issue. But we know that the 6th local council elections in Abuja came and passed with its own dust, as it were. In fact, that's a question when Gwagwalada won, the PDP won the chairmanship there. That is 5-1, 5 against 1, 1 against 5. Out of the 6, PDP got 1. And then I asked the question, I said, no, I know this guy may not also go all out immediately before or after resignation. After inauguration, he might also defect to the APC because he may not also have the stamina to withstand the loss, quote unquote. Allegedly, that might also fall on his table in the true sense of the word. And so he defected. That's one of the dramas that also happened. But again, we know that more than 1.6 million people registered and about 1.5 million actually collected their PVC. But we were told that only 15% of that number also participated in that election. And some people have said that, look, there is a high level of voter apathy, as it were. And some have attributed it, the opposition has called the bluff of the ruling party, according to them, that the issue of curfew that was also imposed from 8 p.m. on Friday to 6 p.m. on Saturday also contributed to the rigging process, as people could not move, to go and cast their vote. Another excuse that they put on the table is the fact that the names, the voting polling units of some people were also changed on the eve of that particular election, and some got their text messages in the morning. You can imagine somebody who is supposed to vote around the Gwarimpa axis being asked to go to area 11 or Garki to go and vote, as it were, under a curfew. And they said that part of that also contributed, largely to that particular results that we're also talking about. But did that also contribute to the malfeasance that we saw in the rough writings of the results that were also posted up as it is? Now, a lot of people have also talked about the Abuja Municipal Area Council, that is the AMAC result, as it were, that the total votes at that is slightly above 62,000, putting all the parties that contested for that election in perspective. And according to them, that the Mekalangu-led APC was also able to snatch away in votes over 40,000 of that particular vote, and then Dr. Moses, as it were, who contested under the ADC, was also able to take slightly above 12,000 votes, and then the PDP cutted away over 3,000 votes for AMAC, as it were. And a lot of issues have also come to play, as it were. But the question, like I said, is who is wrong and who is right. Because every time we talk about these issues, people ask questions. How did you also mobilize your people to go and vote? If, for example, at the presidential villa polling unit, the entrance to the presidential villa, which is a seat of government, the election as of there said only recorded 14 votes, and 7 went to ADC, 7 went to APC. Then you should be asking yourself, how many people are inside that villa that did not also participate in that particular election?
14.
Yes, 14. Then again, a polling unit where Senator Ireti Kinkibe also voted. Some people have said yes, that there were 10 votes in that particular polling unit, as it were. So how many people were mobilized to go and vote? Do the rich also vote? Do the elites also go out to participate in terms of voting? But when you go to Lugbe, you recorded a high level of voter turnout. For example, if you go to Karshi, you recorded a high level of this, and so on, Guarimpa and the rest on some of those suburbs. So the point I'm trying to make is that when are we ready to get it right when it comes to this free and fair election? It is not enough to blame the ruling party. It is also enough for you to blame yourself for not doing enough to ensure that people that are your supporters also go out to vote. Because every time people don't go out to vote and say, after all, even if we do it, they are going to say steal our vote, then again, it is a first step in rigging itself.
People's Prof, a lot of Nigerians will also ask the question, why is it that whenever an election is coming up, we see tens of thousands of security deployed to those places? And I think the Federal Capital Municipal election that was conducted recently, if I'm not mistaken, about 40,000 security personnel were deployed to that place. Can we ask the question, did we have, after the unfortunate incident that happened in Kwara the first time, did we see over 40,000 personnel deployed to Kwara State? Did we see 40,000 deployed to Kebbi, Sokoto and Zamfara? In fact, news filtered in yesterday that a general officer commanding 8th Division in Kebbi actually escaped ambush a whole commander of the army in that division. So you ask yourself, if we continue on this path of laxity, definitely we are giving more strength and oxygen to this non-state actor to even dare our own authorities.
It's also about priority.
Yeah.
Where is our priority? Is it about regime protection, or it's about protection of the people? And it's very important. I hear people say, no, it's only God that can do it. No, God has given us our own part of the responsibility.
Even the places we go for pilgrimage, they also rise up to that responsibility.
You listen to what
they don't just sit and pray.
You listen to what Pastor Eric said.
Yes.
And I want to add, and I mentioned this the other day, Deuteronomy chapter 29 verse 29 says, the secret things belong to the Lord our God. Those that are revealed to us are for us and our own children, that we may abide by the law. If you go and read the entire book and see the law that was also handed to the people as of that time, and you go into the theology of it, you will understand that there's human responsibility and there's godly responsibility. Those things that are divine about today, tomorrow, and the future, knowledge and information is God. But there are extent to which God has allowed us to also exercise those things. And we must exercise it in consonance with those provisions. So when I hear people say, no, the security are complaining, terrain is this, that and this, we have seen systems. What happened to the helicopters that you have? What happened to jumping from the helicopter that we see you during the armed forces to jump on those criminals, as it were? Why can't you smoke them out? As it were, you mentioned a GOC. As a matter of fact, we were told from the military information that we got on our political update that they neutralized 5 of those people. But are people also happy when they hear the number that those criminals neutralized against the ones that the military neutralized?
That's the question.
Should evil also overcome good, or good to overcome evil? This is a question that a lot of people are asking.
People's Prof, I think I'll give you at least 2-3 minutes to actually highlight on the responses we got from our...
At least these are times that reminds us about late Abdullahi Ismail Rocky Boy of Gangari.
The Nigerian man.
The Nigerian man. These are moments that remind us of people like that. These are moments that will remind us that if the unfortunate situation in Gangare is also one that Abdullahi is alive today. What kind of message would he have passed on this platform this morning? Just like Mubarak has passed, Dilimi, just like Lasisi has equally passed, just like Pastor Eric has passed, just like many others who have also spoken, have also said what they said, including Senior Comrade Bernard, Radio Mama, and many others that are also, we cannot mention all of them, have said. So you see, the reality about it is that if you listen attentively to who they do us, about what he said concerning that axis, then you understand that it's easier for you to miss the point when you begin to stereotype people on account of the fact that they are either of the left or the right wing, in the true sense of the word, as it is. We must call spade a spade. We must be able to fight against a common enemy. There's no Igbo man who is doing business in Plateau State today that will be happy about the attitude of any Igbo criminal in the east who would want to attack anybody from the north that is residing in the east. Radio Mama will not be happy for that to happen, because she understands the relevance of microcosm of Nigeria in terms of the interrelationship that exists among the different groups, as it were. And I believe that this should be the driving force for all of us, as it is. Should an Afizre man who is a Muslim also hate an Afizre man who is a Christian? The answer is no. I think that we should not extend our arms to the extent that will allow the enemy to come between us, particularly at these times that it is temptuous, temptational, if I may use that term, during this holy month for anybody to sow a seed of discord among the people. It's going to tarnish us as a people. It's going to take away our opportunity and the religious activities that we're also exercising at this point. What we need more is patience. But beyond that, we want to see government action. And this is very key. We want to see our community leaders action. This is very key. We want to see each person making his own contribution, especially the social media warriors. This is a time that your fingers must also exercise some decorum in terms of what you type, on the faces of this platform, and what you face your camera to should also be something that should promote peace and unity.
All right, our People's Prof, thank you so very much for these final thoughts. Let me just squeeze in these messages. The issue of insecurity in our dear state is gradually getting out of hand. Please, we are begging that the common man's life be protected. I pray for Oga Bello that he will go to Abuja and come back home safely, and everything will go well with him in Jesus' name. Harley Charity wrote that. Bruce Oman in Foreign Gada. Good morning, great radio presenters. Keep up the good work out there. May God continue to help us in this country. We pray for a better plateau and Nigeria of our dreams. Good morning, MCPDK and People's Prof. I want to encourage everyone to come en masse to vote against these people holding millions of Nigeria to ransom. John from Old Airport Junction. It is well with Plateau State. You didn't put your name. Greetings to the wise men in the studio. Well done for their unbiased analysis. I totally condemn the attack and reprisal attack on innocent citizens who lost their lives. May God vindicate our brother Bello Lukman. May that be an opportunity for his upliftment in life. You didn't put your name. We are live at Silverbird for show of to show our solidarity in unity for Peace Ambassador Haruna Ahmed Mahazu. Thank you so very much. And that's the much time will permit us to take this morning. On behalf of every other person that made this program a huge success, we continue to hold you in high esteem because you are the reason why we're here. If you are not there to listen and also contribute to the success, growth and development of our dear nation, then our being here will be insignificant, irrelevant and inconsequential. Ugo, thank you for always being there behind the camera. David Friday, thank you for producing us. My name is Pam Dunquist. Do have yourselves a lovely day and hope to see you on the other side of sunrise tomorrow. Keep listening to this station. That's the only station authorized to make you happy. Bye-bye.